Thank you very much to all of you to come here to this third ESFRI Stakeholder Forum Meetup. Thank you for coming to Kraków. And I would like to start the workshop today now. And I would like to start really giving thanks to many people who has been involved in the organization of this workshop. In the beginning, I remember 2 years ago when I was planning to start to be chair of ESFRI with the previous chair, I said, well, we have to organize more often this stakeholder meeting. And the previous chair told me, well, that will be good, but it's really very heavy organization. And I realized that really it is. So I would like to thank all the people from the AB of the ESFRI who really was involved in the organization, also from the European Union, and in particular the people of the Stress ESFRI, and of course the people of Solaris and the university here, it's very difficult to pronounce, Jagiellonian University of Kraków. So thank you very much, because it was quite a big effort for all of us, all of them, to organize this event. And of course, also first I would say, we were able to do that because of the generous support of the Polish administration, because of course you know that Poland is really in the presidency of the Council of the European Union, and really we got a very big support from the Ministry of Science and Higher Education, from the city of Kraków, from the region of the Kraków area, and of course from the university. So thank you very much to all of you. But really was a great support, and this is why we are really sitting here in this very nice environment with a very good organization. So just from the start, I would like to give a few ideas about the meeting today and tomorrow. So research infrastructure really represent a collective long-term challenge, typically to be in operation during several decades. So when you start a research infrastructure, it's not really something for one framework program. You have to make research infrastructure for at least really you have to think about for at least 40 years time. So it's really, this is why really you have to conceive research infrastructure like a strategic investment, and you have to design this research infrastructure in order to address the current problem and to assure the competitiveness of the future generation. This is also, we are playing something like we can call the principle of intergeneration solidarity, because we are really preparing the future for the next generations. And this, I think, is very important. And the long-term commitment requires a continuous and stable support. And this is the ideas of this workshop. The idea of this workshop is to discuss and to have the opinion from the different stakeholders about the stable support, about really the possibility to have a sustainability of the research infrastructure in the long term. Because I repeat, we have to think into the minimum of 40 years time. European research infrastructure are crucial, of course, for the European research area. And from the last 2 decades, the European Strategic Forum of Research Infrastructure, ESFRI, has been really in the forefront of the strategic planning of the development of the research infrastructure of pan-European character. So the issue, I repeat, the issue of sustainability has been integrated already in the ESFRI procedure and work plan for many years. I can recall only that really different activities we have. For instance, we have a report about sustainability already in the so-called ESFRI Scripta 2. We have a book on that was really published in 2017. And really, ESFRI, from the beginning, through the well-definition of the research infrastructure, we develop collectively the concept of the life cycle of the research infrastructure in the framework of the roadmap evaluation exercise in all the stages of the different research infrastructure. Stage mean along the life cycle of the research infrastructure, from the design to the construction, to the operation, and to the dismantling. And in every of these steps, we identify the sustainability issue, which is really different in the different steps of the life cycle. Also, I would like to point out that we produced the so-called ESFRI white paper in 2020, though this issue is also addressed. And finally, we were embarked in the design of one report about the research infrastructure funding, was led by Elena Hoffert, that will have a presentation later. And finally, this report was presented in the beginning of this year, also after a joint workshop with the OECD about this issue of the financial or research infrastructure funding. So due to this long-term nature of the research infrastructure and the need to maintain this solidarity between the different countries and generation, the sustainability emerged like a fundamental pillar. It's very important, this concept of sustainability is really very broad. I mean, sustainability doesn't mean only the financial sustainability. The sustainability is a very broad concept to integrate different dimensions. In particular, we have the financial aspect, the social aspect, but also we have this, we can call the energy and digital factor. We can really make an envelope of that we call maybe environment sustainability, which is also really very important in order to achieve this long-term sustainability. And all these elements of the sustainability are interconnected. They are not really separated. So I hope that today we will discuss, today and tomorrow, we will discuss the different aspects, and we are really happy or really welcome all your opinion like a stakeholder. How we can integrate and we can make better the sustainability and the resilience of the different infrastructure for the next generation. So this third ESFRI Stakeholder Forum meeting really provide an opportunity for the research infrastructure community to reflect on this issue. And the meetup will bring together the research infrastructure manager, the policymaker, funders, and industrial representative to discuss the role of the sustainability in enhancing the impact and relevance of the research, European research infrastructure. So I really invite warmly all of you to make contribution in the different session, panels, and later in the breakout session to have these ideas that we will try to incorporate in the future in our pipeline of work in ESFRI. And I think it's very important because we have to shape the future of the research infrastructure, who, of course, should be the excellent, is one of the pillars, but the innovation and the creating a sustainable legacy for the generation to come is really as important as the excellence of the science. So I would like to now give the floor to some kind of our people who make it possible to be here. And I would like to invite immediately for Professor Maciek from the Rector Office of the Jagiellonian University. So please, I will give you the floor for the welcome speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great honor to welcome you at the Jagiellonian University at the third European Strategy Forum on Research Infrastructures. Jagiellonian University is the oldest university in this part of Europe. We are 661 years old. Our infrastructure is a bit younger, fortunately, so we don't want to be only the oldest university, but also the most modern. Very vibrant university where we really focus on the future, where we invest in our infrastructure, and that's why you are here, because we are very proud to host here as a university the National Synchrotron Radiation Center Solaris, which we are proud of. I think you will have the chance tomorrow to visit this facility, but I also welcome you to visit our museum. So the old part of university are here in the old town, and new part, new facilities, new campus is around 6 kilometers from here, where we try to be to lead really top science, top research. Today, everybody in Europe discusses how to increase the competitiveness of Europe, how to make research and innovation an engine of the European economy. And Draghi report, published last year, stimulated this discussion, how to shape the future of science and innovation at our continent. And decisions on the shape of the Framework Program 10 will be made soon. But independently on the final conclusions, it seems obvious that we must invest in science based on the top infrastructure, excellent ideas, excellent people, and freedom from bureaucracy. During this forum, you will discuss how to drive innovation and sustainability through research infrastructure. I have no doubt that we have to keep a top position in the race for the most powerful infrastructure. You are the most aware of weaknesses, but strengths, first of all, of your infrastructure in your countries. But at the same time, we must remember to focus on attracting young people to see their future in science. We have to show them that if they choose to become researchers, is a very interesting, very good way how they can spend their lives. We have to wake up their passion, to stimulate their creativity. And I think the instruments which you have in hands really help in doing this. Recent data show that in Poland only 25% of researchers are 40 years old or younger. This is unfortunately not a good number. In European countries, this number is estimated to be around 35%. So here, especially in Poland, we must work harder to attract people, to show them how what can be their influence in our future society. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you will have very inspiring discussions here. You will have very good time seeing Kraków. The weather is a bit better than last days. I hope you will enjoy our city, our university, and I wish you to bring home the best memories of Poland and of Kraków. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And really the facilities of this university here are really very good. So thank you. I would like now to invite Mr. Peart. Is coming from is Vice Director of the Department of the Strategy European Fund from the Krakow City Hall. So, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is with sincere appreciation that I acknowledge your kind invitation to open the meeting of stakeholders of the European Strategy Forum of Research Infrastructures. Unfortunately, due to the prior important commitments, I'm unable to join you in person on this special occasion. Nonetheless, let me emphasize that Kraków, one of Poland's foremost scientific centers, is honored to host this significant event, organized with the framework of the Polish presidency of the Council of the European Union. This gathering presents a unique opportunity to address key challenges related to the sustainability of the research infrastructure ecosystem. Your presence here in our city underscores the importance of collaboration across the diverse communities in building a strong and innovative Europe. As one of the leading metropolitan areas in Central and Eastern Europe, Kraków understands that science and innovation are critical drivers of economic growth and essential to shaping a modern, inclusive city that embraces new technologies. Consequently, we pursue a development strategy that places great emphasis on the synergy between science, business, and public administration. The business service sector, in particular, plays a vital role driving a robust academic and research institutions and access to highly qualified professionals. Our city vision for future development prioritizes strengthening higher education, scientific excellence, and the implementation of innovation as essential pillars of a resilient innovation ecosystem. Krakow's identity is deeply intertwined with the core values of the European Union. It is therefore especially fitting that our city hosts this event, which serves as a vital platform for advancing cooperation in the field of European research infrastructures. The gathering stands as a powerful expression of the Union's enduring principles, solidarity, and collaboration. I firmly believe that through coordinated efforts among local governments, academia, and the business sector, we can contribute meaningfully to building a resilient and sustainable Europe. I hope this meeting will not only offer an occasion for meaningful dialogue, but also lay the groundwork for long-term collaboration among your respective communities. I also trust that despite your demanding schedule, you will find time to experience the charm and hospitality of our beautiful city. I wish you productive deliberations and inspiring discussions. Aleksander Michalski.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I would like now to give the floor to Mrs. Isabella Naida, who is the Vice Director of the Department of Innovation and Development of the Ministry of Science and Higher Education. So please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here today on behalf of Maria Mrówczyńska, Undersecretary of State at the Ministry of Science and Higher Education. Unfortunately, due to other commitments, she couldn't join us today. However, I have a letter from her and I would like to read it now. Dear ESFRI Chair, dear Vice Rector of the Jagiellonian University, dear representative of the City Hall of Kraków, dear distinguished representatives of ESFRI and European Commission, dear participants of the third ESFRI Stakeholders Meetup. On behalf of the Polish Presidency of the EU Council, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to Kraków. I'm really satisfied that besides ESFRI Forum, which will take place on Thursday, today's and tomorrow's meetup will provide excellent opportunity to discuss in more depth and in a wider context issues of paramount importance to research infrastructures in Europe and beyond. Long-term sustainability of research infrastructures was flagged as a key policy priority by the Competitiveness Council already in 2014. It was recognized then that implementing ESFRI infrastructures was critical for the European Union to remain at the forefront of science and technology, and to stay competitive in the global knowledge-based economy. However, putting in place and maintaining such a European landscape of excellent research infrastructures was considered to have significant impact on both national and European science budgets, hence raising the question of their long-term sustainability. Despite many debates and a few reports on the complex and multi-level sustainability challenges, as well as on exploring ways of combining funds from different sources more effectively, the question is still open. Nowadays, finding an answer may be even more difficult, with growing concerns over research security and with national research and innovation budgets facing more and more pressure from other policy areas. Additionally, currently, we fully realize that to achieve sustainability, we must take into account not only funding, but also other important elements, social, environmental, or digital aspects, to name only few. Nevertheless, there is no doubt that we must continue to look for solutions. There is no other way if we want to fully capitalize on the work on research infrastructures that has been done by ESFRI, European Commission, and EU member states and associated countries for over the last 20 years. And ahead of us, there are important decisions in the context of the ESFRI Roadmap 2026 and the next EU Framework Programme for Research and Innovation, among others. I strongly hope that this two-day meetup will provide a friendly and stimulating environment to thoroughly discuss the challenge we are still facing and to propose some lines for action or concrete remedies. I would expect that the outcomes of the meeting would feed into new EU strategy on research and technology infrastructures and would constitute important input for implementation of the ERA Policy Agenda 2025-2027. The latter was recently adopted by the Competitiveness Council, which we consider an important accomplishment under the Polish presidency of the EU Council. I would like to conclude with words of thanks and appreciation to the local organizing of this meetup, the Jagiellonian University, and in particular the National Synchrotron Radiation Center, Solaris, the latter being currently the largest open access facility in Poland, supporting groundbreaking scientific research across diverse disciplines. I do hope you will find time tomorrow to visit the facility and learn about its offer and impact on science, industry, and society. I would also very much like to thank Belgium and Spain as organizers of the previous two ESFRI Stakeholder Forum Meetups. I believe they were extremely engaging and productive. I am very pleased that the Polish presidency can continue to facilitate the exchange of knowledge and ideas, as well as further integration of the RI community in Europe. I wish you all very fruitful and inspiring discussions. I do look forward to learning about the meetup outcomes. Yours sincerely, Maria Mrówczyńska, Undersecretary of State.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will insist really to thank all the organizers from the university, the City Hall of Kraków, and also from the ministry. I know that really during the presidency of the Council of the European Union, there are so many activities, and thank you very much for the support and to your presence here in this event. Thank you. So I would like to start now the workshop with try to set up the scene, and that will be, for that we will invite to Elena Hoffert in order to make the first presentation about to set up all the discussion for the next 2 days about the sustainability context. And Elena is vice chair of the ESFRI, and she has been working for a few years in this issue, at least the first step about the financial, let's say, sustainability of research infrastructure. She was really doing that in the working group for a few years. And of course, I said before, we make a joint workshop with the OECD about these issues. And finally was presented the report from this drafting group on this sustainability or the financial sustainability of research infrastructure. And it's available in the web page of ESFRI from, let's say, from the beginning of this year. So please, I invite Elena to set up the scenario for the discussion in the next today and tomorrow. Please.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm very happy to meet you here, and thank you for this opportunity to present to you the work of ESFRI on sustainability. And actually, I would like to start with a short introduction, even though you heard already from the previous speakers about the long history of ESFRI. But just to remind you that ESFRI was established in 2002 to help bring in together the strategic planning and investment decisions of member states and the European Union. Actually, in adopting the roadmap since 2006, member states and associate countries, they have always paid particular attention and highest attention to the sustainability aspects of research infrastructures, not only individual research infrastructures, but of the whole environment of research, European research infrastructure landscape. So now we count 63 research infrastructures on ESFRI Roadmap 2021, and it mobilizes over 24 billion euros at national and regional investments. And we arrived to this point where we think that sustainability of research infrastructures landscape is really an important issue, and it has been a key agenda item concerning the whole system since several years already. And as it was mentioned before, we have Council conclusions in 2016 where it was said that it is important to ensure the long-term sustainability of research infrastructures, and the Council invited the Commission and the Member States to prepare an action plan for sustainability of the whole research infrastructures ecosystem. We have analyzed the situation. We prepared an ESFRI scripta, which was published in 2017, and the recommendation ranged over several points, like securing highly qualified, motivated human resources, and also we had to think about robust transfer of information to society from the research infrastructures to a quality-controlled e-infrastructure. So building effective interface between research infrastructures and innovation activities, understanding the actual value of benefits to society, and also addressing the governance, optimal governance and management of research infrastructure. So you see that all these points are not new. We have identified them at that time, and we are continuously working on these points. And at ESFRI, we published in 2002 a white paper, which is called Making Science Happen, where we engage ourselves to reinforce the position of research infrastructures as an essential pillar of European research area. And we speak about the necessity of showing the scientific excellence with impact in research infrastructures, and develop and exploit the potential of research infrastructures as knowledge and innovation hubs, and which should be integrated into local communities and which should form the basis of European competitiveness. And already in this paper, we say that also the combination of national, European and other funding sources is vital for the healthy development of pan-European research infrastructure ecosystem. So the approach is very holistic. We have to think about all the issues, but as we understand that funding issue is actually the backbone of the whole system. And coming to this point, the Council called ESFRI and European Commission in its conclusions from December 2022 to analyze the funding systems and funding sources of research infrastructures, and maybe to identify the best practices and the bottlenecks, and to produce some recommendations and explore the appropriate funding models. We published a report which identified these points. It is published in January 25, and you can find it on the website. I will come back to the conclusions a bit later, but first to say about the opportunities and the challenges that the research infrastructures represent. These issues which we discuss in ESFRI and which I tried to put together here in the slides. We know that excellence in science and outstanding quality services to users are the imperative for the successful performance of each research infrastructures. And we also know that in order to support this system, we need a robust long-term vision, which is embedded in a supportive policy-driven environment, because research infrastructures are like, big liners. We construct them for many years, we invest a lot of money, then they operate for many decades, and then we dismantle them. So this is something which overpasses the just simple political mandate. So we need really a long-term robust system which supports the research infrastructures. And we should understand these long-term strategic investments at all levels, which should be deeply rooted in society. The opportunities, we know that the research infrastructures give a lot of benefits to society. This is absolutely unquestionable. We have a lot of discoveries which were not unattended actually, but we discover them while doing something which is planned more or less by research infrastructures, and this is also a great thing. We have these large-scale scientific installations which are intrinsically incorporated into the region ecosystems, and they shape the region's competitiveness as well, and they are also part of the local agenda, and they help also to cover the innovation gap between different regions. Research infrastructures have also tremendous impact on skills and education agenda, and they all of these impacts are actually deeply rooted in research excellence and the excellence of the services which are provided by research infrastructures. And all of these things are certainly accompanied by challenges, and we in ESFRI do our best to maximize the strategic view of research infrastructures. We can see the examples of structural funds, for example, in research infrastructures investments, which demonstrate the need to adjust research and competitiveness policies, and the adjustment of regulatory frameworks, which require consultations between different national ministries, between different directorates of the European Commission, for example. We also identify the needs of cross-border communication at this meta-regional level, ideally before putting in place some operational programs. We also understand that the research infrastructures should be integrated into broader competitiveness concepts at national and European levels, which is absolutely critical for the long-term sustainability of the whole system. And certainly, when we speak about research infrastructures, as it was mentioned already before, we should think about a clear plan for the life cycle of the research infrastructures evaluation, because it is absolutely necessary to plan in advance the engagements, even though the final details of all these engagements we will see several years later. During the operation phase, probably. But all that should be prepared by decision makers and funders and stakeholders. So, and in the end, actually, when we worked on our funding report on research infrastructure, we also identified the item which is important, which is the complexity of funding systems in each country, and the multitude of funding instruments, and sometimes even the transparency is relative in all these systems. That's why I put here all these recommendations from the funding report. Well, I don't know if it's practical to read them now, but I can explain to you quickly, and anyway, you will find them all in our report on the website. As I said, the funding question concerns actually different levels, different actors, and we made recommendations to 3 groups: to the research infrastructures themselves, to member states, and to funders at all levels, at national level, European level, regional level. And concerning the research infrastructures, working on the report, we identified that not only the systems of funding were complex, but also that the research infrastructures themselves have maybe to better understand and have overview of all this funding which are coming to their research infrastructures, particularly concerns the distributed research infrastructures, where we have the central hub, but we also have the national hubs, and the overview of the whole funding system is not always so evident. So research infrastructures themselves, they have to work already on this issue. Member states also have maybe to better make visible their funding systems to research infrastructures. In that sense, it can be useful to have the national funding strategies in coherence with the national roadmaps, for example, or some equivalent of national strategies. And also funding monitoring instruments can be useful in the whole in the whole funding strategy for member states. Concerning funders themselves at different levels, first and foremost important point is certainly the commitment to long-term engagement and planning of the sustainability of European research infrastructures, as it was said before, because this is something where we engage ourselves for a long term. And already from the very beginning, from the inscription of the research infrastructures on the ESFRI roadmap, the member states have to think that it's not just a European project of 3 years where you make a preparatory phase and you're happy and then you go back home. It's the beginning of a long journey, and the long-time engagement is absolutely necessary for the sustainability of the whole system. Then promotion of funding sources and synergy of funding sources of different levels are really important. And the European funding sources should become more comprehensive and more perceivable. Because we have a lot of funding sources from the European level which are coming to research infrastructures, but it would be nice to have the whole system more clear, more visible, more understandable for all of us. Then the cooperation between research infrastructures should be encouraged, and this cooperation should be also aligned with your European priorities. This includes the funding of curiosity-driven research, which is absolutely important for research infrastructures, because we should remember that this is the primary mission of research infrastructures is actually the excellence in research. And also we need to support the access to research infrastructures to top researchers across Europe. By the way, concerning access, we have published another report of ESFRI. You can also find it on ESFRI website, and then we have more details about how we see the access support models. Concerning the European challenges, this is also a very important point. We face a lot of different challenges. We think about digital transition, green transition, about energy transition, about emergency situations. All these things are our common European concerns, and we suggest that these challenges should be better supported and maybe stronger supported by the European funds, and it will be really very helpful for the research infrastructures in order to better adjust their activities. And this would also help to extend, upgrade, or link the existing research infrastructures, not necessarily to create the new ones. Public missions research infrastructures is also very important, because research infrastructures, besides providing access to top researchers, they also fulfill a lot of public missions, and that can be also should be also considered by European funding as well. At least this is what we stated in our report, that all these European missions, this is something which is also important at the European level. So we need the support for that. And also human resources is actually a very important point because without people we cannot work on these research infrastructures. So we need some targeted funding mechanisms at European but also at national levels for the recruitment and training and skilled staff across European research infrastructures. Well, that was the funding report, and now just a couple of ideas about research infrastructure sustainability, which we are considering at our ESFRI work currently. We have published a landscape analysis, which was decoupled from the roadmap in summer 2024, and this landscape analysis offers a very comprehensive vision of the dynamic environment of research infrastructures, which gives us the indications about current state, services, impact, and future of research infrastructures, also about challenges in all scientific fields. We also consider that updated cost analysis should be in place during all phases of the research infrastructure cycle, with adjustable financial and governance architectures, with some periodic science strategy updates, because we know that the landscape is evolving, the partnerships evolve, and we have different opportunities for international cooperation and other challenges which are occurring around research infrastructures landscape. In this aspect, research infrastructures monitoring can be further developed as a strategic tool for ESFRI. In ESFRI several years ago, we developed this system of monitoring for research infrastructures landmarks. We have run now the first round of this monitoring approach, and we have to learn some lessons from this exercise, and it can be very, very useful for us all, for member states, not only to look after the development of research infrastructures, but it can also help to take decisions on also political decisions and funding decisions. And also ESFRI can help with a holistic vision of the whole research infrastructures ecosystem in Europe, englobing different elements of the area surrounding, like ethics, partnerships, technology, infrastructures, and so on. So just to conclude, I think that this Stakeholder Forum Meetup is really a very good opportunity for you to formulate and to express your vision on the long-term sustainability of research infrastructures on different aspects which were listed before. We have focus on two aspects in this stakeholder forum, but if you go beyond, it's also interesting for us to know. And it's also an opportunity for us, for ESFRI, to take on board the expressed ideas, and we will continue to reflect on this critical issue in our work, and we will continue to promote the necessary actions ensuring the long-term sustainability of research infrastructures in future. And actually, this is also the momentum which we should seize to think about the most critical issues of the sustainability of research infrastructures, and it will be an opportunity for us to bring this issue to the level of the European discussion, also in the light of the upcoming changes in the next framework program and so on. So, well, I think that was all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Elena. And okay, now, just from the point of view of the logistics, you realize that this workshop is divided in two sessions, one today and the next one tomorrow. And this session will be also at the same time divided between a keynote speaker after a panel discussion, and finally breakout session in the smallest group to discuss the two items. So now we are opening the first session, whose title will be Driving Innovation and Sustainability Through Research, Infrastructure, and Industry Collaboration. And this session will be driven by Michael Arentoft, who is the head of unit for open science and research infrastructure at the European Commission. And of course, is very much strong involved in ESFRI and all the work that we do, but much more than that. So I give the floor to Michael in order to drive the session today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, José Luis. You already explained the choreography of the session today and the same tomorrow. So I will not delay any further the introduction of the keynote speaker. We have with us Professor Serge Fdida, who is a professor of computer science at the Sorbonne University. What I note in particular from your CV is your pioneering in terms of a European federated internet testbed. Also, you have a strong experience related to innovation, to industry. So these are two of the keywords in this afternoon's session. You are currently also coordinating SLICES, which entered the ESFRI roadmap in 2021 as the first large-scale scientific instrument in digital sciences. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Michael, for the very nice introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. It gives me really great pleasure to participate to this event. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the organizers for the very kind invitation. Also, when I read the topic that I'm supposed to cover, I thought it is really challenging because it's a topic that has been already hotly debated, and it's very, very difficult to be innovative. So I'm supposed to talk about sustainability, and then thereafter the ability to engage with industry. So sustainability, my definition is basically that it is grounded on three key pillars. So the first one is identity. Maybe it seems to be poorly defined, but it's very, very important because it defines the vision and mission together with the community that is supposed to develop it. Second, hotly debated, you need a business model that has to take you to the sustainable plan, which means that it has to be anchored on a multi-annual financial framework. And last, and in order to rule them all, you need a legal entity, especially to manage the complexity of all the different sources of funding. So it happened that, as many others, I've been exposed to sustainability over the last 15 years. I started back in 2010 as one of the founders of EIT KIC Digital, and in 2014, EIT KIC Health. Then in 2018, I was one of the architects of another type of instrument for EU plus European University. And as you said, in 2017, we started this initiative to develop SLICES RI, which was very happy to enter the roadmap in 2021. And although this is maybe not the most important topic, sustainability has always been very high on the agenda. So I'd like to share with you some thoughts, personal thoughts about sustainability in those domains. And because we are discussing the possible engagement of industry, and because some expect that research infrastructure will become an innovation hub, I'd like to make maybe some lessons learned about EIT. So EIT, as you see, has a completely different mission originally. It's innovation-oriented. So meaning that it is more market pull than technology push. And the big difference here is with respect to the TRLs, so the famous TRLs. What is important to understand is that if you want to seek for serving academia on the one hand and industry on the other hand, what you need to put in place is quite different. You need different skills, different processes, different workflows, different organization. And again, the value of EIT for industry is that it is a public-private investment. So in practice, what we have tried to advocate, as we do here within research infrastructure, is what we call the network plus plus effect. So this is this broader concept of sustainability. So the value for industry to get involved into EIT is the possibility to have access to this global intelligence that actually enable each of individual partner to go beyond their original capabilities. The big difference, as you see, is that in EIT, industry is involved in the governance. So they are not only acting as users, they are also steering the community. Of course, they also have to contribute to the self-sustainability of the infrastructure, so basically the back office, which, as you can see, is quite expensive. So they have to contribute with fees, but the big difference is that through EIT, you can get a return on investment through the course that basically EIT itself is developing. As soon as EIT had to align with the European Horizon Europe framework, they lost a little bit this closed type of framework because you have to also open your course to others. Although, as soon as EIT was created, it was debated to really understand what is the value. And you also have to argue with respect to other types of models, like, for instance, in the health sector, you have this IHI model, which, again, is very strongly governed by industry. So this kind of positioning of the different instruments, of course, is really, really important. So again, I'll go very quickly because I only have 15 minutes, but of course we all agree that this network plus plus effect, so this global sustainability value is really, really important. It touches base on all those aspects that also Elena has mentioned, so I'm not going to go back to that one. So what is the economic value and how can you reach financial sustainability is often the most important topic. So on the one hand, you need to decrease the cost. No doubt, so you need to mutualize infrastructure, technology development. But on the other hand, also you have to be very careful with respect to the fragmentation of the instruments. Because every single instrument will come with, as Elena said, a problem of understanding about what kind of service they provide, as well as, of course, with overhead with respect to the engagement of the different sources. Then you need, on the other hand, to increase your revenues. So meaning that you need to understand what kind of services you can monetize, for instance, for research infrastructures. So meaning that you need to understand who are the payers, who is going to pay for those services. As soon as you do innovation, that's the most important question. How good is your innovation? You need to understand who are the payers. So of course, it could be large industry, it could be SME, it could be startup companies, but again, this is quite a tricky situation. And eventually, you have to think about the way you need your RI model to be adapted, because again, it was really targeting blue sky research. If you want to attract large industry, then you certainly need to make your model evolve. So, and of course, there is a diversity of situation. There is no one-size-fits-all. So every research infrastructure has assets that they need to understand how they can value them in order to attract industry. And we have already some examples, very good examples about industrial usage of research infrastructure. You can see a few examples here. However, we can be disappointed that the revenue is still very small from industry engagement in research infrastructure. Because a large part of the global sustainability, as I mentioned earlier, is intangible. So you're not going to monetize those, although the impact on society is very high, as we all agree. And one of the issues when you want to address both targets at the same time is the tussle between openness and innovation. If you want to support advanced research and with the capability to be transformative, then you need to make your environment as open as possible. So for instance, this is where we promote fair data. This is where we promote global cooperation. This is where we also expect that the environment is completely open. On the other hand, as soon as you bring industry on board, you have to understand that what matters is competition. And competitiveness doesn't mean openness. It means that you need to value the asset that you will be able to carry on in this environment. So IP should be protected, and again, you are going to share as minimum as you can so that you can keep your leadership. But maybe there is an overlap between this openness characteristic, which is fundamental for research infrastructure, and the competitiveness issue that you will find as soon as you bring industry in the loop. So certainly you all witness that the world is changing very quickly. And this is also the case for innovation. So what is really important these days, and you have plenty of examples around you, is that time to market is shrinking. So if time to market is shrinking, it means that you need to find a seamless way to bring ideas into the market. So technology push on the one hand, market pull on the other hand, and you have these big issues in the middle. Fragmentation, to my opinion, and that's a personal opinion, is really a big concern, because fragmentation creates, again, overhead, and maybe it's not on purpose, but it creates a divide between the different parts of the communities that I mentioned earlier, which is this global intelligence that you want to bring into scene. Governance and access has to be revised, for sure, because otherwise, certainly, it won't work. So as I don't have much time, I would like maybe just to take two examples that I hope could be discussed later on about how this divide in between can be bridged by two possibilities to value industrial participation. First one, I'm really happy because I am supported by the 2 Nobel Prizes in Physics and Chemistry of 2024. And you've seen the growing importance of data. And of course, this is going to be transformative for science. And what is really important here are the foundation models that we expect to bring thanks to, again, artificial intelligence and open data. What is really important to understand is that if you want to build those foundation models, not only you need to build the best models, but you also need to control the data, and you need also to control the training. Only a few big companies can do that. And I don't think, maybe I'm a bit controversial, but I don't think that any big company in Europe can do that alone, in any field. So meaning that they need to bring the data, although this is a small part of the global data, so they cannot create competitiveness. Also, in research infrastructure, because we are neutral, I think this is the best place basically to build those foundation models that industry can bring back to their own environments in order to develop competitive solutions. If we don't do it, others will do, and I think that will be very, let's say, unfortunate with respect to the impact on society. I think, and I hope that the stakeholders will understand this. For instance, Slices AI and so big data, we are now working together in order to address that gap. But again, this has to be done for many, I believe, domain science, and that could be covered by many research infrastructure. Another very short example, and I know that you are all completely convinced by this one, it was mentioned by previous speakers, is about capacity building. If you look at big industry these days, they have a large stock of human capital, but a large part of it has to be either upskilled or reskilled. Otherwise, they won't be able to address the future challenges. We saw it during the COVID crisis. So I believe that research infrastructure can also become the place where we could support this development of skills. And in particular, because the European Commission now is promoting very strongly the concept of micro-credential, which is very well suited for lifelong and professional learning. Of course, this has to be done jointly with universities, because universities is the only place where you can get the credits and the qualification for the skills. But again, because being able to develop appropriate micro-credentials is really complex and require a lot of energy, I believe this is really a very strong target for research infrastructure that could be monetized with respect to industry. Again, if we don't do it, others will do it. So I have to close here with only two very simple comments. The first one is that I am strongly convinced that research infrastructure are a catalyst for the knowledge triangle, because we already have two parts of the triangle, education and research. And I believe that it's possible also with adaptation and without changing the core vision, blue sky research, to attract industry by bringing business into this innovation triangle. And the last is the reason why we are all here is because we care about research infrastructure. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Serge. This was very pertinent to the 3 lines of discussion that we have foreseen for the panel. But before we enter into the panel, allow me to give you a brief update on the context, another context of listening to you at the Stakeholder Forum. So Elena said, of course, at ESFRI, we're listening to you, but also, of course, at the European Commission, we're listening to you. There was a reference to the ERA policy agenda. There is a priority action, a structural policy, as it's called, which makes it more permanent, which is a collaboration between ESFRI and the European Commission to keep research infrastructures high on the policy agenda. We are developing a European strategy on research and technology infrastructures, something that we have been consulting on, I would say, more than a year now, during the early 24 and well into 25 now. We have been consulting, of course, in the context of ESFRI activities, also in the context of the ERIC Forum and the individual research infrastructures. We have had an expert group also on technology infrastructures. And here it is. And we have also, as I already mentioned, been consulting in the context of the new ERA policy agenda. As you can see on the top of this timeline, we are working both on the side of the member states, because of course the strategy requires joint action from the EU level to the national level, to the regional level, all the way down to the institutional level. Exactly a year ago, we had a first discussion with ERAC. This is the committee composed of director generals of the research or science ministries across Europe. There was another discussion which was more focused on technology infrastructures in October last year. And Friday this week, ERAC is set to issue its opinion on a strategy, a European strategy for research and technology infrastructures. An opinion, of course, which was already discussed in February. And we have seen a draft also last month. So we are already, of course, taking into account the opinion of ERAC. Below the line, you see how we have been preparing inside the Commission. So already, also around a year ago, we tried to push the importance of research infrastructures into the agenda of the Commission, which is now in place. We succeeded to have this explicitly mentioned in what is called the mission letter of our new European Commissioner, Mrs. Sarajeva. And we also, in April, issued a larger call for evidence to broaden even more the public consultation. You will see later we received 441 pieces of feedback into this call for evidence that we are now analyzing. We foresee to adopt the strategy right after summer, probably in connection with the European R&I Days, again to give it a splash and to allow our commissioner to announce it, so this will be around mid-September. To give you a glimpse of the more than 400 responses that we got to the call for evidence, you will see that there is a large representation of research institutions, of course not surprisingly 43%, but you should note also that from the business side there's quite an important feedback as well. Companies and business associations make up almost 20%. What have we seen so far? So we have done a very fast preliminary assessment, of course, with the help of all kinds of tools. We see an emphasis on improving accessibility to infrastructures, in particular for new users. The issue of funding and sustainability also comes up, as well as emphasis on digitalization of infrastructures, the importance of data sharing, management and interoperability, the integration and use of AI tools and the different infrastructures, but also the need to match industry needs and EU priorities with what is being offered by infrastructures. And you can see that these strategic priorities are mentioned in several sectors, as you can see in the last bullet here. But also enhanced, maybe I wouldn't call it coordination, more collaboration between infrastructures, either of the same type but also of different type, so that indeed from the user and the services point of view, there is a more seamless continuation of complementary infrastructure services. So this feedback that we got from the call for evidence matches quite well, I would say perhaps not surprisingly, with the extended and intensive consultations that we have had for more than a year now. The challenges that we see emerging and that we need to tackle with the new strategy is on access opportunities, it's on budget limitations and fragmentation, it's to make more of the potential of digitalization, data management and sharing and reuse, and the use, of course, of AI tools. But also to incentivize, stimulate more collaboration, both across infrastructures, but also with industry. And this is exactly, of course, the theme of this afternoon. Two things to add, which were not so coming out so clear in the call for evidence, was mentioned, the importance of human resources and skills, as Serge just mentioned. And also previously was mentioned from the Polish presidency, the increased emphasis on issues of research security, of autonomy, and may I add also sovereignty, technological sovereignty, data sovereignty, as well as other issues that we believe also need to tackle in the new strategy. This is how we have put the, you might say, the political objective of the strategy. So selling it from the point of view of infrastructures being important for research and innovation in Europe, but of course also the importance of access, and with the end goal of having facilities that are at the cutting edge, that are really world-class, and services also that are tailor-made for the users. So a few bullets of where we see blocks of actions or issues to be addressed with specific actions, either at the European level or encouraging actions to be done at member states level or institutional level. One, of course, around world-class facilities and services, taking into account the diversity, the increased diversity of user needs, joint infrastructure technology developments. Another one of the themes that we will be tackling also with the panel. Again, maximizing potential of digitalization and AI. Investments, of course, in terms both of mobilizing them, pooling them, and of course prioritizing them to see where they are best deployed. Regional, national, EU level funding sources, but also when looking at the EU level, structural funds, recovery and resilience funds, and also other financial instruments like the European Investment Bank could be considered here. New financing models as well, so looking not only at financing for research infrastructures, but also for research and innovation in general. For mobility researchers, we know that many infrastructures take advantage of these, but going all the way down to funds for deployment and operations in infrastructures So these typically appear also in sectoral policies where we can take advantage of those, and also looking into the balance between investments, so co-financing or co-funding models is also something that we believe the strategy should be looking into. Access, and here the keywords is this seamless continuum of complementary facilities and services with schemes that are more integrated, that are more sustainable, schemes that are more flexible and have a longer term perspective. The importance of people and talent and HR is something that we also think the strategy should tackle, going all the way from the technical to the managerial level of training, but also addressing mobility of staff, as well as career opportunities of staff. And finally, on the international collaboration side, of course, keep supporting infrastructures as hubs for international science collaboration, but increasingly taking into account these new challenges around, as I said, research security, data sovereignty, technological sovereignty, and being more resilient to the kind of crisis we also see now, where we see cuts in funding, lack of access to certain data sets, and we believe there is a need from a European strategy point of view to support infrastructures in implementing risk management plans, contingency plans, mitigation plans. Finally, just a list of other strategies that are closely related to the research and technology infrastructure strategy that we will issue mid-September. We issued on the 28th of May a startup scale-up strategy that has also action around access by startups and scale-ups to technology and research infrastructures. Beginning of July, we will issue a life sciences strategy. It also has an infrastructure component. Use of AI in science, a strategy coming out early September, of course, with important links to data repositories, data spaces. And two pieces of legislation that we have in mind for next year. One around a European Innovation Act that takes up again access by industry to infrastructures, and a European Research Area Act, which is more about circulation of knowledge, among other things. I'll stop here to leave enough time for the panel. So thank you very much for listening. You will hear more in September. Now allow me to introduce the distinguished panelists. If I may ask to enter the stage Professor Caterina Petrillo, who is all the way up in the back. Caterina is a full professor in experimental physics at the University of Perugia, and she's also the president of Area Science Park in Trieste. Please. We also have with us Professor Tadeusz Uhl from the Space Technology Center. He's a director of this center. He's also the dean of the Faculty of Space Technologies and the AGH University of Kraków. José Carlos Caldera, there you are, José, who is an advisor of the presidency of INESC Tech and a member of the board of the European Factories of the Future Research Association. Dr. Michael Ryan is also with us. He's the divisional head of international at Science Foundation Ireland. Research Ireland, it recently changed name. And of course, also executive board member of ESFRI. And finally, but not least, Gérard Giroux, there you are, who is here mainly, I think, because you are closely involved in RITIFI, the projects, Research Infrastructures on Technology Infrastructures, but you're also the EU Manager, ICT Strategy and Policy Unit at TNO. So as you can see, an impressive lineup that we have. We will cover, as you have seen in the program, 3 angles of what is the title of the session. The first one is around joint technology infrastructure, technology developments. Secondly, industry as a user of research infrastructures. And finally, the final angle is when we look at research infrastructure, industry, collaborations, beyond the scientific markets. So this has an innovation ecosystem angle. So if I may kick off with the first question, and I will ask the Polish representative here, Professor Uhl, about the question, what challenges do research infrastructures have to keep staying at the cutting edge of technology for what they offer in terms of facilities and services? What are the needs between joint technology developments between infrastructures and industry? And also, do you think that there could be specific frameworks that could be supporting these needs? Please, Professor Uhl.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. That is great pleasure for me to share my point of view with you. I can say I am the university professor. I started to work with mechatronics, now I switched to space technology. That is a big requirement to commercialize the technology which we are developing for space to be more efficient in Europe, to have more autonomy as a Europe for space research. I am convinced to work with research which are commercialized, means that I also started many companies with my students and with my PhD students, up to now about 29 startups. There are several big companies among this. That's my point of view. It's a little bit different, like pure researcher, because I feel the needs of this young researcher who wants to be entrepreneur to start a company. Nowadays, there is a big requirements to start the companies with basic research as it is possible, because if you want to achieve the breakthrough innovations, that we need to start with the idea, with research, that's access to infrastructure, research infrastructure is very important. That's what I see from my point of view. The availability of the big infrastructure for the young researchers to make their own businesses is very limited. That is my impression and my point of view. We need to have the frameworks, more programs to open this infrastructure for young researchers to convince them to do that in efficient way, in the good time frame to make the business. This is very important, not trying to find a lot of funds to be in real infrastructure, to pay for that a lot of money and so on. We need such a program to support young people to make the innovations in this way. Thank you.
Thank you. If I may ask also Professor Petrillo for your reaction to these questions.
Thanks for the invitation. I will go straight to the point. I mean, I'm in a kind of privileged position because as president of this area science park, we have inside our campuses 3,000 people working there, and these are equally distributed among startups, spin-off, innovative enterprises, and research centers, international research centers, and a research infrastructure. So it's a special situation. It's a science and technology park, which is an old concept, because this was developed, I think, during the 60s, starting from the United States. But nowadays, it is becoming a very flexible approach to push research infrastructures and technological infrastructures and to match the TRL we were discussing before between pure research and applied research and the market. So apart from this, I think this is just to say that there are areas where all these kind of things can mix together. The point is to make them really mix together, to really realize an open innovation ecosystem and not just putting people together like an industrial district or an industrial park. So you were asking what are the current challenges for research infrastructures. From my point of view, these are mostly the so many emerging technologies that are coming out, and these technologies are covering a wide set of sectors, of thematic areas, and they are impacting at a very high speed. So it is many technologies in different fields and a very high speed of that. So research infrastructure should keep the pace. They should lead this kind of evolution or evolving situation. And this is not always the case. Research infrastructures in many cases just follow the evolving situation. So how can they stay at the cutting edge? Certainly now I'm saying something that is not, maybe not politically accepted, but I believe that if you want to stay at the cutting edge, you need to increase the internal capabilities of your staff. The staff has to be continuously trained, continuously keep at the highest level of professional skills, because otherwise you have the research infrastructures that are simply and just giving services. This is not the real future for research infrastructure, and this is going to be a diminishing position from my point of view. So this means that the research infrastructure managers should have the opportunity to leave more beam time or more internal effort for their staff to keep them at the highest professional level. This is something that I believe is important. The other point is that the people working there have to be part of collaborative groups. They have to work within partnerships, international, of course. This happens in many cases, but these partnerships should be pushed towards industrial and entrepreneur components, which is less common. So networking with the industrial partners is something important to support and to promote mobility between enterprises, industries, and the research infrastructure itself. So this means that we have to push for the research infrastructure being an element, just one of the elements of an open innovation ecosystem. I stop here because
there will be more questions. Yeah,
I
many
have
things.
a lot to say.
No, very good points. Jose, may I turn to you and see from your perspective, how does it look?
Well, first of all, good afternoon. INESTEC operates both research infrastructures and technology infrastructures, which allows me to say that I know that they are not equal, but they can be very complementary. And that's the first thing I like to stress. And following what was said before, the way I can see to answer this challenge of scientific diversification and increasing challenge, a more complex challenge, and the speeding up of the technological development is precisely the cooperation between this value chain, the innovation cycle. And so research infrastructure, and now I use my hat of research infrastructure, they play a central role, as it was mentioned here, but it's clear that we need to collaborate more among research infrastructures to share equipment, to share resources, and to be able of dealing with the more complex multidisciplinary challenge that we have. But we also need to position ourselves upstream and downstream and making in better links with upstream and downstream. And upstream meaning academia, universities, as it was mentioned already, in education, on advanced education, but also in shared infrastructures, and also providing universities, as it was mentioned, with a pathway for breakthrough for deep tech startups. Because in many cases, universities don't have these capabilities, but research infrastructures can help doing this. We also need to make it better our links downstream. And it was mentioned already, the collaboration, and we'll come back to that for sure later on, the collaboration with industry. And I want to collaborate with industry that, as a research infrastructure, is capable of doing research. And they are companies that are capable of doing research. They have PhD students they are PhD staff that were actually trained in our laboratories, training in academia. So they do research and they are able to work with us as a research infrastructure. But of course, this represents, I don't have the number, but maybe 3 to 5% of the industry. And we have a huge amount of other sectors, other companies that should also benefit from the knowledge we produce as research infrastructures. And to get to these companies, the best channel is working with the technological infrastructures, because they can be this channel to bringing our knowledge to other sectors, to other companies, and this way augmenting significantly the value and the impact of the research, of the knowledge that we are, as research infrastructures, are generating. So I think that I would say these are the main challenges, apart from the funding, and I'm sure we'll come back to that later, is how can we adapt, as it was mentioned in the intervention, how can we adapt our model to answer to this growing complexity and speed, acceleration of technological development. And for sure that we need to improve the way we collaborate both upstream and downstream. And this will help us also with the funding, because it will make it clear the impact that we have in society and in the economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, José. Let's turn to the second line of discussion that we have foreseen, which is industry as a user. So very much focused on access. If I may ask you, Michael, what are the challenges faced by research infrastructures and by the industry users that are typically research intensive in accessing research infrastructures? How can we best support research infrastructures in developing these access schemes, transnational access schemes in particular? And from the point of view of the industry user side, what are the main barriers? Because they're very often new users, at least seen from the infrastructure point of view. Michael?
Thank you, Michael. Maybe just to give a view on some of the challenges and barriers, and then maybe onto the potential support structures in answering your question. So just first of all, to put a little bit of context on it, 2015, ESFRI created a working group, and it was called an innovation working group. And the principle of it was, we need to try and find ways to have industry engaging far more with research infrastructures. Almost, for use of a better expression, become revenue generating entities. And not dissimilar to what Professor Fdida was saying, an excellent presentation. Now, has that worked? Arguably 10 years, maybe it takes a bit longer than that. At least our intervention of trying to get the ESFRIs to incorporate it. We certainly, as part of our review process in ESFRI, and as part of the hearings, one of the key areas is, how are you engaging with industry? What are you doing? We're entering potentially a brand new world over the next decade with this competitiveness compass, potential competitiveness fund, potential remodeling of FP10, call it what you will, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it is, I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing. But the important thing is that the rules of the game perhaps are changing, and we need to try and find ways, and the idea of simply saying we need more money as a research infrastructure ain't going to work. So we need to be a little bit more creative. In 2023, as you know, Michael, we had within ESFRI, we had a drafting group on ESFRI project, particularly landmarks and ERIC's engagement with industry. We had 160, it was open to industry. We had 160 respondents to it. One of the questions was, are there any barriers to engagement with ORIs? And less than 10% said no, there's no barriers. So clearly there's an issue there, may not come as a surprise. Now, here's something for you. The top 3 reasons, barriers for engagement for industry with the ORI. Number 1, just over half of it, 53% said lack of financing. We don't have the money. Now, arguably, and indeed you pointed out, when we talk about industry, we're talking about multinationals, which have plenty of money, and we're talking about SMEs, which oftentimes are starved of cash. So arguably, that's not hugely surprising. A lot of SMEs want to engage with research infrastructures. They simply don't have the funds to be able to do that. Secondly, there was one on ownership and IPR, so intellectual property rights and intellectual property ownership. Not surprising, about 25% of respondents said this is a big issue for us as industry. Who owns what? Oh, no. Here's one for you. 49%, half of the respondents said, we don't have the expertise within industry. Mm-hmm. We don't know how to engage with the research infrastructure. That's the way I'm reading it. We don't know how to engage with the research infrastructure. So this leads me on, Michael, to a bit of a head scratcher. We need to come up with ways of how we can help the publicly funded research infrastructures to engage better with industry. So here's something. Industry are saying, I want to work with you, but I don't know how to, because I don't know what skills and what for services you provide. In the same survey, a vast majority, I think it was in the order of about 85% of respondents, said that it was them, industry, that went to the research infrastructure, opened up the phone book to find out, I wonder which research infrastructure can help me, not knowing what they were looking for, perhaps. In other words, there was no action from the side, broadly speaking, no action from the side of the research infrastructure to engage with industry. So herein lies a problem. One of the most common things that I've heard over the last hour is the word human capital, resourcing, the lack of resourcing. So let me put it to you this way. There is clearly a lack of expertise and understanding from an industry perspective to effectively engage with research infrastructures. So why don't we have supports in place to allow to parachute research infrastructure personnel into industry, to engage, to collaborate at a seed level, at a foundational level? I've said it before, Michael, we have a program already within Europe that is clearly, its job is to do this. It's the Marie Curie program. That's its job, to be able to help the mobilization of researchers across the union, to engage across various universities, various cross entities within industry. So that's number one, this idea of trying to get industry fellowships to engage with the industry partner. I think also in 2020, I think it was at the tail end of Horizon 2020, perhaps at the beginning of Horizon Europe, on the Research Infrastructures Programme Committee, and some of his colleagues here in the audience will remember, we brought in a program called the ILO program, which was the Industry Liaisons Officers, where it was effectively funded for the ORIs to engage closer with industry. Now, let me rephrase that. We should try and, I suppose, readdress this so that we are helping research infrastructures recruit business development managers. Business development to go out, their sole job is to generate revenue. Their sole job is to raise awareness. Their sole job is to sell their services and their research infrastructure to industry partners, experts coming in. So I think on the support side, there are various things that we can do. We also know, and I'll finish now, in research infrastructures, some research infrastructures are very good at doing certain things, and other research infrastructures are not good at doing that. Engaging with industries, one, and we heard it earlier in the talk. You have some ERIC that are excellent at engaging with industry. We need to consider creating knowledge platforms. These are non-competitive knowledge platforms to allow a cross-domain expertise to be shared among research infrastructures so that they can upskill, they can talent creation, they can help develop various personnel within research infrastructures in one domain, simply going to another where there's no competition involved or anything like that. And I think whether you do that for industry engagement, whether you do it for cultural engagement, whether you do it for equality, diversity engagement, some research infrastructures are better than others. But we need to create that web, that togetherness to allow that to happen. Thanks.
Many thanks, Michael. Lots of good points, lots of suggestions, not only for us. I saw a lot of nodding from you, Katharina. Would you like to comment also on this question?
On this specific point.
Yes.
I think that we should, in a sense, consider industries not only as providers of our technologies, because of course this is one of the major ways in which we have, as a research infrastructure, a relationship with an industry. High-tech providers. This is useful for the industry because of the spillover effects, the socioeconomic impact, all these things that we more or less know that have been studied. But the point is that it should be that we should try to get the industries embedded into the research infrastructure. I agree with what Mike has just said. We need to have programs that are supporting the, say, joint proposals between universities, university people, and industries. We need to find ways to incentivize the applications from industry, explicit applications from the industry. This could be something like, we all know the mission-based access, way of accessing to research infrastructure. Maybe we should try to think to something like technology-based access, which is more open to industries, for example, to get them involved into the development or the upgrade of some instrumentation. There are ways which we should explore, but the point is that we need to have an open mind towards the idea that the industry is one of the essential components of the whole system. Of course, industries need a safe or a protected environment from several points of view. But if we can offer, and now I join the comment on the technology infrastructure. Technology infrastructures, of course, can offer this kind of protected environment where you can test before invest, you can have the demonstrator, you have the joint lab, you have ways in which the industrial people can carry on their tests on prototypes, so they can work without risking. And we should try to get a clear connection between these protected areas and the research infrastructure, because research infrastructures could do this. And this is something that probably will attract the industrial users. Of course, patenting, IPR, licensing, all these kind of things are a problem, but they can be, at least they can be studied, and a solution can be at least outlined. An important thing which I forgot before, the framework, pre-commercial procurement. When we talk about procurement, pre-commercial procurement is something that can help getting the industries on board, opening the possibility of new markets for them, etc. But stop here.
Many thanks, yes.
Okay, that's, from my point of view, that it's a lot of problems because the companies are working based on the risk assessment, yeah, and make the decision to mitigate the risk. Now I consider the business risk, yeah, that if you are going to the research center to make very deep tech research, we generate additional risk for the business, yeah, because they need to introduce new processes to the production lines and so on. This is a lot of problems related to the business part. Of course, we mitigate the technical risk for the product, for the technology, and so if we are making a lot of research. But how to solve IP ownerships? This is a deal killer in many cases, which I found in my life. Yeah, that it's a big problem because as a research infrastructure institutions, that we need to have this IP. We need to keep this IP because our reports should have. We generated IP, but industry, they want to have the IP for all they own. Yeah. As next problem, it's if they engage, the industrial people engage to the laboratory, they need to develop the skills to use the laboratory. They lost the time. Time, it's a money in the industry. That is also. That's what I am trying to do. It's a transfer of the people from research to the industry, And we need such a program, how to help people to come from the research with the results, with the IP to the industry. It will help because people will be trained, will have the knowledge enough to introduce immediately if they start to work with a company. Thanks.
Many thanks. Géraud, could I turn to you and hear from the point of view, I guess specifically on the experience around RITIFI and all the activities, how you see this question?
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to say that allow me just to make a quick introduction of the RITIFI. So the RITIFI project is a project which is coordinated by CEA and which involves 10 research infrastructures and technological infrastructures. And the purpose of this project is just to develop and support the collaborations between ERI and TIs. And here I hear a lot of things that my co-panelists actually are calling for. We have developed in this project a collaboration frameworks. You said it very well. Collaboration is costly. Establishing collaboration is costly. And if you have to do that for every industry or for every ad hoc collaboration that you want to establish, that's going to be asking a lot of efforts from the research infrastructures or for the technological infrastructure. I work for TNO, and TNO, we share the schizophrenia that you mentioned, Jose. So sometimes you ask some people who are research infrastructure, some ask others who are technological infrastructures, who ask for even other people who are none of them. So we have this, and we have business developer. So here I hear my co-panelists giving good options, but they're not necessarily fit for all. Marie Curie is a very good program, but it remains on a project-based approach with a call and with a timeline which doesn't benefit an SME or a startup which has to be very, very fast and very, very strong. Now, the RITIFI project tried to answer those issues and try to look at also to offer those issues in looking at how the ecosystem is evolving. And here is where the technological infrastructures come in. The ecosystem will evolve in the next 10 years. You said it very well, Michael. Now, what would be the roles of the technological infrastructures to supporting the roles with the industry? We have developed tools to help you, research infrastructure, technological infrastructure, and users to establish those collaborations according to the intensity of the collaboration you want to make, or according also the type of collaboration that you want. And this will be always sector dependent, will always be industry dependent, and will always be beneficial, will always require, as I've been hearing on my right, the research infrastructure also to adapt. Professor Fdida have said very well, RIs will have to adapt. TIs will have to adapt, industry will have to adapt. And we're happy to provide the tools here.
Thank you, Géraud. If you can keep the microphone, because I think you could bridge to the third set of questions, if you like, which is about research infrastructure, academia, and industry collaborations that go beyond and deliver applications into markets beyond the science market. What are the benefits of research infrastructure to engage in such a collaboration? So engage also in the, and you've mentioned it before, the ecosystem around a research infrastructure. So, as I said, also for markets beyond the science market into be they public market or private markets. And what do you think, if you look at these collaborations, which ones are the most effective in terms of the many examples that you have seen? But as has been mentioned by many, there's also this element of additional benefits, being it in societal markets, but also in terms of attracting and growing talent. So again, the human resources aspect.
Yeah, several answer has been already mentioned. So let's evacuate the elephant in the room immediately. Financial sustainability is a reason for the ERIs to go there. Access to talent, specifically in a very fast evolving ecosystems, is a reason for the ERIs also to go there. It has been mentioned by my colleague. I would say also thanks to collaborations between ERI, TI, users, industries, help also to reach the capacities. It's very difficult to give us an answer which is fit for all because it will always be very, very specific to the sectors. But the multidisciplinary aspect, which help for the societal good and the prosperity of European Union is good. We have a policy at European levels which is really well oriented toward competitiveness. And inside this research strategy, there is sentences that say this competitiveness will help to trickle down toward our prosperity. Let's make it stronger. Let's make it stronger as this. One extra benefit from this that I would like to mention, and I'm stretching here, it would be also to support the strategic autonomy. We're going to face huge financial issues for RI, for TIs, and for industry, which can hamper our competitiveness, but will also can hamper other things. The collaborations to go toward the societal impact of RIs will also help for the strategic autonomy. And
Thank you. Yes. Jose, could I ask for your take on this last set of questions as well?
Let me just pick up also this issue of this case, because I think it's a critical point.
Mike.
Oh, sorry. I can try my strong voice, but it's better with the mic. So let me pick up with this focus on this issue of the talent, because it's a critical aspect. Not only for what was said, but also to deal with the speeding up of the technological development. Now, in former times, usually we develop the technology, and when the technology proved, then we train the people. With the speeding up, particularly in some of the areas like the digital areas, if we do it like this, forget it, because when you have the people trained, the technology has changed. So now we are forced to do simultaneously technological development with education and training, at least with a first level or a first set of people that are able to go to the next stage. So we need to train scientists, then we need to train what I call engineers, and then we need to train the workers of the companies, and then many times we need to train the users or the consumers afterward that are using the product. So if I go along the value chain, and this is a pyramid that the number of people increases tremendously along the pyramid. So one of the things that was mentioned here is that companies don't know how to use a research or even technology infrastructure. So let me tell you a small example of how we try to deal with this. So when we do a lot of collaborative research already with companies, either funded by European or national regional programs. Since we are linked to university, we bring students, PhD students with grants usually, and we include them in the research project. So for 2-3 years they are doing their PhD work. They are developing the technology, they are learning, but they are also doing their education and training. And at the end of the project, in many cases, they go to the companies with the results. This is first. The best way of doing technology transfer is when you transfer people. You increase the capacitation of companies, and then you have a PhD in that company that from that point, he knows how to work with us. He knows how to contact research organizations. So the idea is how can we use these cycles to bring this to do the technological development that we need to do, but also to train people and then pass them to the companies. Of course, we can pass them to startups. They can create new companies, and this is very good. But we also need to think how we change the existing companies, because they are the vast majority of our economy. So, and this is, if we don't do this, only startups will not solve the problem. So we need to find smart ways of speeding up this process, and this is one of them. But then, as I told you, we need to train other people in the company to do the industrialization of that technology. And we need to train the workers. These persons, they are no longer capable of coming to a research infrastructure, but they can go to our technological infrastructures, where they have the setup appropriate for this type of training of more, not professional, but more on the technology development training. So again, it's the combination of research and technological infrastructures that allow us to ensure this continuum of the development. And this also helps us to show, as a research infrastructure, listen guys, we did this research, but this research had these consequences, had this impact along the value chain. It's our capability. So we do this within our organization because we have research and technology infrastructures, but we should be able to do this among ourselves, among other. I want to collaborate with other research infrastructures at European level and with other technological infrastructures, mainly, as it was mentioned before, along some of the strategic value chains that we need to make these networks. Because if we are still working alone, it's a very small scale to do this. So if we do this, we will increase the capability of industry to work with both research and technological infrastructures. The last point is the following. Attention. The vast majority, again, and I'm not a problem to be challenged, the vast majority of companies will not work with research infrastructures today, not even in the future. Why? Because to work with a research infrastructure, keeping as a research infrastructure, the companies don't have the internal capabilities to then take the results of this research and do the rest of the way. They need other steps that can be ensured, for example, by the technological infrastructure. So we cannot force companies, small and medium-sized companies, in many cases, to work directly with the research infrastructure. Now, we have two ways of handling this. Either research infrastructures enlarge their scope of intervention, and they develop also capabilities and characteristics of technological infrastructures. So they become a blend, or we do, as I said, my idea was this, I would like to state that my research infrastructures, they stay as research infrastructure, and then I collaborate with technological infrastructures to do the rest of the way for those companies that are not able to do it. So it's the two ways that we can have. I prefer the second one. I think it's smarter. I think it's more profitable for everybody. But of course, it's an open point for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought
Okay.
Michael had a small point just to jump in.
Comment?
Yes, please, both.
Okay.
You start.
That's what I'm thinking too, that it's a most efficient way to make the business development with a high-tech. It is a transfer of the people from research to the companies. But there is a lot of obstacles on that. For instance, if we are training the people to make the research, we are training them to spend the money, because the projects are doing well if we spend according the schedule. But each company needs the people who know how to earn the money. This is completely different point of view. That's what is the conclusion on that at the start of the research, we need to think and give possibility to think these young people to think about the business, how to make the business on this research. This is a way, it's education, it's a way to make the efficient transfer of this research results to the industry.
Thank you. Michael?
Michael, thank you. I want to answer your question that you mentioned about the societal benefits that research infrastructures can bring, but just before I want to come back to this point, and I think you're absolutely right. There's one or two things we can do, and I know you said you preferred a second. We just need to be very, very careful, generally speaking, that whatever model is used. So we know we're now living in a world of not only research infrastructures, technology infrastructures, industry infrastructures, innovation infrastructures, digital infrastructures. The list is endless. It's becoming, and I've said it before, the size of the pitch hasn't changed, but there's far more players coming onto it. So we're getting to a stage where we've got a saturated system. And what's going to happen is, and this is where, in ideally speaking, having an RI working in that continuum with a TI, to me, makes a lot of sense. However, the answer is going to be from the council, there's your pot of money, now fight among yourselves on how you want to divide it up, and nobody will be left with anything. And this is the real fear. Already we see within the Research Infrastructure Work Programme, €2.44 billion simply isn't enough. So what's going to happen is that's going to be shared among a much wider base of infrastructures, and I think we'd need to be very, very careful. So to do that is fine, but there needs to be a structure in place to make sure that continuum happens. As it currently stands, my own view, the definition of TIs, it's not enough. It's pretty much the same as what it is for research infrastructures, which is a problem. Now, so to answer your question, Michael, if I may, on this very, very briefly, you mentioned about the societal benefits. As it currently stands under FP9 and under FP10, which it looks as if, as of from last week, that there is going to be a standalone framework programme 10, we think. Let's say at the moment, research infrastructure sits under Pillar 1. Okay, in the current structure. I've always been baffled by this. Why does it sit under Pillar 1? Research infrastructures is the bedrock of carrying out research. Any form of research is the actual tangible base of which research can be carried out. So therefore, we don't have enough incentives or opportunities or perhaps enough proactivity for research infrastructures to work much closely across the whole framework programme system. Pillar 2, Pillar 3, look at all the partnerships. Co-funded partnerships under Pillar 2.
Just don't have your hand at the bottom. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, what I'm suggesting is that I think that the research infrastructures, we need to find a way, and indeed technology infrastructures, to become partners under Pillar 2, under the partnership program, standalone partners in themselves, not only for revenue generation, but to move away from that industry need and to have more of a societal value, whether it's for talent creation or whether it's for societal benefit in research projects.
Thank you, Michael. Let's also try to increase the size of the pitch, but that's another question. Jérôme, please.
Yeah, as a former member of the program committee for research infrastructure along RED, I can only applaud what he just said. I think we're going to need cultural revolutions inside the ARI ecosystems, but not only, also beyond, inside the entire European ecosystem. We do not need to think anymore just in terms of service delivery or research delivery. We need to think about a collaborative, allow me to be a provocative word, collaborative business model. We're going to need to think about collaborations as a way for pushing forward the ARIs.
Thank you. I want to leave time for questions from the audience. We started 10-15 minutes late, so I think we have a bit of time from the audience. I don't know how it works with the mics. Yes, unfortunately, the gentleman all the way in the back has the first question. Thank you. Please.
Thanks a lot. Anton Ussi from EATRIS, Life Sciences Research Infrastructure. We're an RI and a TI. In fact, TNO, for instance, is a member of EATRIS. So we do early development and late development. If I may, it's more a comment than a question. I think when it's about industrial participation, I think we're asking the wrong question. It shouldn't be how can we make revenues from industry, because when companies have enough money, when they're cash flow positive, they don't need infrastructures. They do everything in-house because it's a competitive business. There's very little business model for having a really strong industrial portfolio for infrastructures, for companies that can afford to pay for the research. Where we're suffering, though, is that stage just before a company becomes viable. The early validation, where it's an academic with a great new technology, but they don't know what to do next. That's where the infrastructures can help them, with both expertise and the ability to provide the laboratory services that can help them validate their product to get that first bag of cash, where they then have the ability. We've got a big silo in the valley of death, where there aren't KPIs that are sexy. The publication ends. The academic remit ends with the publication. There's a big valley of death before we have then other sexy KPIs. We need to fill our money in there to actually get more industrial startups ready for the industrial process. Research infrastructures can really support that big gap.
Thank you. Now, it wasn't a question, but you can still comment on a comment. Yes, Professor?
Okay. You are right that it's also an efficient way, but what companies need from the universities? They need at first talents. They need basic knowledge how to solve the problems, their own problems. And the third, ideas of the new project, the ideas of the new product, of the new technology, and so on. That is, in my opinion, all what they need from us. Yeah. That's this business model that they will own the laboratories that make some research, high advanced research. This is a business model which is also very efficient, and many countries are doing like that.
Thank you. A quick reaction from Katarina?
Yes, maybe there is something more that research infrastructure can do. I agree with what you said, but certainly a research infrastructure can help in generating and creating and supporting startups, deep tech startups. This is something that we are not doing at all, but this is something that research infrastructure can do, because they have the capability, they have the skills, maybe they need more people, more flexible and people able to understand the needs of a startup. But this is a gap, in my view, which research infrastructure can cover. And this can be helped by the Commission, by funding, by specific funding for this.
Thank you. Let's take another one. Yes, in the middle.
Sylvain Charbonneau from Canada. First time Canada participate in this ESFRI workshop. Thank you very much for the invitation. I would like to hear from the panel members about the flexibility in delivering the services for the industrial sector. You touch on it somewhat. The importance of getting these users going into the facilities and basically being physically in presence and pushing the buttons in the labs. Is that very important from your perspective? Or do you deliver it through technicians in the lab and they're not having access to these RIs?
Yeah, I think that one of the main qualities that an infrastructure needs to have is to understand what the company wants and needs, and to know very clear if this is something they can do or not. The best thing sometimes the best thing we can do to a company is to tell him, no, what you want is not here, but I can tell you where it can be. So, for example, if a company comes to an engineering challenge, which is not research, it's engineering challenge, to a research infrastructure, the best thing the research infrastructure can do is to say it's not here, but you can go there. Okay? So we need to make it clear what we do and not do, and depending on the problems or the challenges of the company, to be able to understand which is the right entering point for that problem. That could be a research infrastructure, it could be a technological infrastructure, or it could be an engineering company. Because if we are not doing this right, then you have these problems of companies saying, oh, I went to this university or this, I cannot work with these guys because they were unable to do whatever I wanted, speed up. And the other way around also, we hear researchers saying, oh, it's impossible to work with companies because they only want short-term things. So make it very clear, this is the first thing. The second is, of course, to have the services adequate to the type of companies and sectors you are dealing with. Because it's very different to work in life science, to work in energy, or to work in the shoe sector or the fashion sector. You need different tools, you need different approaches, and you need different profiles of people. If these are two things for me that are very clear, of course, then later comes the funding. But for me, the funding is the last part. Is not the first part.
But do you allow industrial partners to come into the labs and during their own you do?
Yes,
okay, thank
yes. So we allow companies to come and do research in our research infrastructures because they know how to operate those devices, those infrastructures, those microscopes. They are able to do research. And we also allow SMEs to come in our technological infrastructures. But in that case, for example, we have technicians to operate the things. Because in many cases, they don't know how to operate. They want to see, they want to test, they want to demonstrate, but they need somebody there to operate. So, but we allow them both for research, more fundamental applied research, and also for education and training.
Thank you. Jérôme?
Yeah, allow me to respond with my two caps. For TNO, we have business developer, and we have business developer where there are structured according our research area. This is how it's structured our work, but basically the business developer are in charge of developing the relationship with the industry. And the vast majority of the times, I don't have the numbers, but the vast majority, it's ad hoc collaborations. So it's somebody who knock at the door, or us who find somebody during networking and say, oh, let's do a one-on-one collaborations. Very, very, very rarely it becomes more structured collaborations. And this is where, now I take my second cap as Retifi, there the collaboration between research infrastructure and technological infrastructure can actually help. That can allow actually the ad hoc to go toward the technological infrastructure, which have far much more experience with it, or most used. Again, it's very difficult to give a general response for this because you've got big RIs that are very well also to develop these kind of things. But the collaboration between an RI and a TI can be structured, can be established, and work seamlessly for the industries. So that will always depend about the ecosystems and the sectors in which you work.
Thank you. I see you have captured the mic. Yes, please.
Yeah, Andrew Smith from Elixir Europe, Life Science Data Infrastructure. So I also have a comment more than a question, but it builds on a point that Michael nicely made, which is about how we do need to make sure that our visibility is well known from other important initiatives like partnerships and missions and so on. And obviously, I completely agree with that. And I think ESFRI's made really good steps in these last few years to take this stakeholder approach. And I think that's really, really important. But I think we'll know that we've been really successful with this if we've got representatives of the partnerships and the missions and industry associations in meetings like this. Because I think it's mainly ESFRI delegates and ESFRI research infrastructures. But if we've got people from those organisations who want to be part of the discussions, then I think that we'll know we've been successful embedding that properly.
Thank you. Anyone wants to thank you for the comment? Yes. Antje?
Thanks a lot. Antje Kepler from ERIC Forum. I think we are looking at a very rich ecosystems when we look at the European research infrastructures. And I think we are not just a starting point in the continuum with the technology infrastructures, but there are some of us that might be in that ideal position. But I think there are also parallel cases here where the research infrastructures do work together with startups and also with big companies. It's not only the small tech companies that are just starting, and I think Anton has a very valid point here, but some of us are also working together with big pharma, for example, and they do find our services valuable. And while we are asking or complaining or pointing out the weak points, I would like to highlight that there are up and running EU-funded calls that can benefit, for example, industry user access, that can benefit the mobility of staff between research infrastructures and industry. We are trying to implement this at our infrastructure. So we do have staff exchange, job shadowing, mentorship programs, and I think a lot of what we are asking here for is actually happening, and probably all of us have to do some homework here when we are writing our next proposal to also pencil this into the proposals.
Many thanks, Antje. Any other questions or comments? Yes. Please, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Yannick Legret, Operas. Operas is the Open Scholarly Communication Research Infrastructure for Social Sciences and Humanities. So SSH is that scientific area that everybody believes doesn't need money and can just thrive out of love and thin hair. So just more seriously, the first keynote speaker mentioned also want to rule them all a legal entity. And so also research infrastructure are ruled by a legal entity that is different from the entity composing it. And so I didn't hear anything mentioned about that. And the issue we have with industry that, for example, we have a service provider or service component provider that are SMEs, and we are struggling to be able to find the cash from the different member states to fund them. So this is something that should be on the very long term, not just short-term collaboration. But this is more related to the funding sustainability of the RI, so this is probably another discussion. Also, another point that hasn't been touched yet with collaboration with industry is that it automatically attracts the attention of all our friends from the different tax offices across Europe, and that it raises a lot new number of issues, and that put a huge burden on the research infrastructure to handle that. And at the end, the benefit for the research infrastructure is quite minimal in terms of cash flow or things like that. So there is something we need to work on here to be able to facilitate that relationship and maybe, not go always through project or pre-commercial procurement or whatever, because this is very short term and it also costs a lot of effort.
Yeah, Michael?
Just on that point, and I think that particularly with the SSH communities, we've talked about industry engagement, industry collaboration. It's much harder for some than it is for others to engage, and I do think framework programming is a very, very big entity that has a lot of opportunities around it, and we talked about partnerships or whatever, and Andrew mentioned it earlier, and we need to, and you know, Michael, the Commission needs to do a lot more to incentivize cooperation across work programs, not just expect applicants to apply, but to be more proactive. And I know we have been for RI work program to engage with the partnership work program cluster pillar 2, to engage with Marie Curie. It needs to start, or even ERC, it needs to start at the work program committee level, not at the other. And just a final point, Antje's point, it's great to hear that there is networking going on across the ERICs, but it's not nearly as much as perhaps it should be across different domains, but point taken.
Thank you very much. Yes, Jose?
Apart from the education and training and combination of, apart from the combination of education and training and research I already mentioned, there is another instrument. Let's talk about instruments. That is not long-term, but which is something that can be very important, not only to speed up the knowledge flow, but also to build these links, which is the kind of instrument that we call proof of concept. So which means to, as soon as possible, to be able to extract results from fundamental research, from blue sky research, and make tests to see if there is a potential of application for this type of things. In the last years, we have improved very much our capability to link the applied research and the market uptake, but we have not done enough, in my opinion, to link or to speed up the link between fundamental research and applied research. And there is a huge potential there is a lot of fundamental research results untapped, and we could speed up very much this flow of information and people, again, information of people, if we do more this type of proof of concept projects. They don't have to be very long projects, can be short, but very without interfering in the mainstream of the fundamental research, allowing to, as soon as possible, to take these results from fundamental research and test them, and if they prove to be applicable, then to start applied research projects. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take one last question, and who has the microphone? Yes, please.
Michael, so when we think about the discussion around how to integrate innovation industry into the research infrastructure, there's two parts of the conversation that I hear, and we have to be careful that we don't overlap those two things, or that we try to make them work. I mean, one is we know in Europe, generally speaking, we lack investment capital that we see in other places that motivates industry to innovate and develop. So one of the things that we offer through Pillar 3 and others is ways to replace that capital through innovation projects, helping industry, small industry, large industry to innovate, offering grants, which could then offer access to research infrastructure. So that's fine. I think that's a very different discussion than a discussion around sustainability for research infrastructures, that they need to survive on the market. I don't think that's what the intent is. I don't think there's a market for that. After 25 years of it, pretty sure there's not, looking across the world. So I think looking at those two things separately is important, because the first one, helping Europe to be competitive, that's something we can certainly do, and we can do it pretty quickly, and I think we're already doing it, as Antje said. What is the right amount of it? That's not a KPI that's been defined, because it's actually not part of the mission of any research infrastructure to do that as their primary mission. All right, so if you need to do that, you first of all have to really assign that as part of the mission of the organization. But nevertheless, I think all the pieces are in place for that. But the idea of replacing funding through the market, I mean, the market would have responded by now. And the reason we have research infrastructures with public investment is because it fills a gap in the market. That's a pretty basic economic principle. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan. Reactions from the panel? You agree? Okay, I think we deserve a coffee break. But before that, please give a big hand of applause to our panel. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we have to continue, and now is really the feedback coming from the different breakout groups. So we have 5. And will be, now we try to summary the discussion we have in the 5 groups. So I will start, because I was trying to animate the purple group. And there, of course, as usual, and you start by the first question, and you devote quite a lot of time, less time to the second, and almost no time for the last one. But I know that my colleagues were very clever in the other different breakout session, and they started by the last one and go up to the first one, so we compensate. So clearly we start by the first one, and so we devoted much of the discussion to the first question. And there, one of the discussion we coming out was really how to handle was a question, the very difficult situation about the different time scale between a research infrastructure who has a very good idea and they want to construct something which is in the cutting edge and really takes very long time, and the service that you want to provide to the industry, but will be for the industry who really defined the needs 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. That is really a very difficult situation because it's not really realistic. So we have to have some kind of mechanisms in order to try to maintain the collaboration with the industry and update the needs from the industry along the time of the design and construction of the research infrastructure, because cannot be really constructed and designed in one moment for whatever will be the needs of the industry 15 years later. That is really not possible. So they said this is a challenge that we have to be very, we have to address that from the beginning, otherwise will be a fail. Also, the second discussion was, I cannot understand that. Industry benefits mostly from the expertise and knowledge. Okay, I understand that. No, I mean that really whatever really the research infrastructure can provide is really maybe the more important point is really the expertise and the knowledge. Technologies can be changed and can be updated much easily, but really probably the more, let's say, important contribution to the industry could be really the expertise and the knowledge accumulated and available in the research infrastructure. The technologies can change and maybe it's much easier. Sometimes it's a question of money and some time, but much easier to address. But knowledge and expertise are really long-term and more difficult. And probably this is the real added value of the research infrastructure, and more added value of the research infrastructure. Also, I would say that we don't, also different comments came in the sense that we don't have to close ourselves to only services or collaboration with the industry. Also, some kind of transfer to the society could be very important and should be also give a value for that. I'm thinking about the services we can provide, in particular from the digital infrastructure to the society. And the society at the citizen of itself, not only with the industry itself. Also, the different discussion was, yeah, we have to change many things and we have to evolve. But sometimes it's really more important to change the narrative. Oh, I lost the message. We change the narrative. Of course, it's important to move around in order to improve the collaboration with the industry, but sometimes it's also as important as that to change our narrative, how we present to the rest of the society and to our ministries and also European Commission, how really we update and communicate is also extremely important. And also the last question about this question, the last comment was sometimes we have to revisit it, what is really the user needs, in the sense that we have to have very clear and probably to develop the service related with the user demand. Of course, if we want to give service to the particular group, you have to understand very clearly what is really the needs of these people. And actually was also some comments made that maybe to have people at the research infrastructure who are able to spend some time in the industry and to see there the different needs is really very important, but how to finance that? How really a research infrastructure cannot really easily to give the people to stay 1 or 2 months in an industry, because this usually you have the personnel and the human resources needed for the operation of the facility. But if there are some kind of tools in order to finance this kind of short-term, let's say 1-2 month stay of the people in very particular research industry, that will be very beneficial in order that later on the research infrastructure could really adapt the offer of the service, really more tailored to the needs of the industry. Respect to the second question mostly about the access, was one of the discussion was, okay, we want to have the access to increase by the European industry because we want to have European Union technology. What this really means? I was the people who really made these comments here. Actually, it's very difficult to define, and actually, usually we have problems about this kind of support and the very particular industry and technology with the state aid. Maybe this has to really to be revisited, and because otherwise it's very difficult to be strategic. I mean, if we want to make a strategic support, at the end of the day, you have to select probably one company, 2 companies. And if they get this extra support, you are violating the state aid. But if you start to try to have support to any kind of industry, and then you are divided the very limited support to many, many people, and you don't have really impact. So this is a controversy also has to be solved. We have also the example from Canada, because we have in our group 2 people from Canada, and actually they raise the point that in Canada they have possibilities to bring together people from the federal labs, people from the industry, and also for the public administration. And that was a way to speed up all the process from the research prototype to the product. Because in particular, was the comment, in the chemical industry, there are a lot of regulation. So if the beginning, this chemical industry is working with the federal laboratory, but also with the administration people who made the regulation all together, that really is a way to speed up the process from the one idea or the development in the research infrastructure to a product into the market. Because also to be a product in the market should be quite a lot of regulation. It has to be fulfilled. So don't forget about that. And this possibility of working together, so I don't know, it could be also a message maybe for the Joint Research Center or something like that, could be a good idea, putting together research laboratory, research infrastructure, industry, but also regulatory part. I think for the chemical industry, it's very important. I know for the nuclear industry, this is extremely important. Otherwise, it's impossible. Also, related with the access by industry, of course, the TNA is more than TNA. TNA was one of the comments, was very, very well oriented, mostly, I would say, for the physics and engineering research infrastructure. We have this transnational access. But what about virtual access? What about the particular cases of the access by the digital, in the digital research infrastructure? It's not the same. So probably this kind of TNA aspect has to be revisited. And again, I lost the... And finally, respect to the last question, who was really much less discussion because we don't have enough time. I mean, was aligned with one of the comments in the panel. So maybe in the best of the cases from the research infrastructure or laboratories, you are right to some kind of prototype. But from prototype to product in the market, there are many, many steps. And they cannot be done clearly by the research infrastructure. Of course, it should be done in collaboration with the industry, but maybe still there are some kind of extra interfaces. I think was very clearly also one of the comments made in the panel. And I think this is really has to be covered. And industry, that was a very good example that someone put out into the table. If we consider, for instance, in the medical, not hospital, in the hospital you have a lot of services. the diagnostics, I don't know, imaging, and of course the expertise from the doctor. But doesn't mean that really all the patient goes there and said, well, I want my treatment. No, you have to go to a process about the diagnostics. And the diagnostics should be very, very clear. And after that, the machinery of the hospital start to work, either by the imaging, to make a very clear diagnostic or imaging, and finally the treatment. And at the end of the day, you go to more personalized healthcare. So maybe, the idea was in the research infrastructure, maybe we have to try to go to this kind of approach. In the sense, cannot be that the research infrastructure, we are serving the industry. Industry come here and use whatever you want. No, we have to go to this process to do a very clear diagnostics. And that goes against the previous comment that maybe people of the research infrastructure who spend sometimes in the industry and had a very clear diagnostic of whatever is needed in the languages of the industry, that is really a prerequisite in order to really to have a higher use of the research infrastructure by industry. Because what the industry needs is really a personalized healthcare, not really a general, oh, this is all our facility, use it. This is not really a good approach. Has to be very personalized. So how research infrastructure can go to this idea of personalized healthcare, personalized medical care. Okay, that was the discussion. And thank you. I go to the next group. Who was, which one? The next one? Pink.
So we were the ones starting from the last question, Q3, and we didn't make it up to Q1. So, but I tried to make it quick. So Q3 was about the benefits of working together in industry. No, that was Q3. Right, we do it in that order. Okay. I thought I was expecting Q2. Anyway. So what are the benefits there? There, of course, working together allows also to showcase the capabilities of your RI towards governance or funding agencies, and to show the impact on society. And it allows also to build trust, which is one of the key elements, it seems. Well, we hear that not for the first time, but it's a recurring topic that it's very often it's a trust-based relationship between industry or SMEs, especially SMEs, and research infrastructures, but also with research with researchers, and it creates also a virtuous circle, because when you are developing or improving services for industry who would like to work to certain standards or protocols, that can also have a positive impact then on the services delivered to researchers. And then you have a kind of, this virtuous circle. And of course you get funding from other sources. And then there are some challenges, of course, you're facing. There was one point when companies want to access research infrastructures, there might be different legal constraints in different countries. So this was one of the major problems. Then also when we have, for instance, Horizon funded or European funded topics on transnational access, it can be that the focus of the topic and the timing of the entire program does not really fit the needs of industry, because their need might fall out of the narrow focus, or it might fall out of the time frame of the project. But okay, we have recognized this at the European Commission, and we are trying to develop a different way of providing access. And it is difficult it comes back to this trust-based aspect. It is difficult to expand the collaboration beyond the local level. So since it's trust-based, very often it's a local company coming. And there, in Q2, in the question 2 answers there, we have there's some suggestions how to improve this. And lastly, which is the first point, the impact assessment is a challenge. Many research infrastructures just would like to have some guidance on how to do this. It's not the first time we hear this, but it's a difficult point. Next slide, please. Okay, no Q2. What happened? Could you go back, please? Maybe that was jumped. Is there one more? Can you go one more back, please? No. Oh. No, one more back. Yeah. Oh, that is. Oh, okay, it was there. So, it was about the challenges accessing RIs. So, actively reaching out to industry users at national level. It's something which needs to be really reinforced, and it requires additional funding. But it's also reaching out to researchers. And of course, we have these pan-European research infrastructures. Well, it is difficult for them to reach out to companies at national level. This is where intermediary companies and RTOs, national RTOs, come into the play, because they could actually promote, or it's like this diagnosis part, where what we just heard. So someone else nationally, at national level, can diagnose what the industry partner needs, and then they can be dispatched to the different services all over Europe, basically. And the trust is built via the RTO or the intermediary company. Then when standardizing access, it can be a challenge that the access is accepted by industry. That was an example from a digital RI. And one thing which was also mentioned here for digital RI, which also comes back to this hospital approach, well, then having a kind of internet of RIs would be basically you have all the services which a hospital can offer. You have them then connected, and here beyond then the digital part and providing like the service the industry needs. That's all. Thank you. I hope I didn't forget any key messages. So.
So the red group discussed all the questions, and we put here more than just bullet points, actually, because we were also thinking about the future paper, which we are going certainly to produce on the basis of all these discussions. So the challenges which research infrastructures face, we had different discussions, and a lot of things were said, but just to complete somehow what was said by the previous groups, I think our 3 bullets are very good, because we spoke in the beginning about infratech calls, and we said that these infratech calls are really very successful, very useful, very interesting for all the communities, although there is a gap between the end of the infratech calls and the implementation of the results in reality. So we need to find some mechanisms to fill in this gap between infratech and then implementation of the results. The second point is about data, that we all need quality data, researchers, but also industry, and the production of quality data is a big challenge, because it takes time, it takes money, it takes a lot of effort, human resources effort. So this is something which should also be discussed, and a solution should be found for the production of good quality data, which can be used afterwards by artificial intelligence, for example. And actually, artificial intelligence needs the quality data. So the first point is data, and the second point is that when we speak about data, we should speak about the whole spectrum of research infrastructures in the same field, for example. research infrastructures should not consider the research industry like their personal client, which comes only to this research infrastructure. It is really wishable to consider the industry as a client of the whole research infrastructures ecosystem, at least in a given field, because the data can be, should be interoperable, and different research infrastructures should be able to interchange this data and give it at the disposal of the industrial users. We also spoke about the possibility of industrial co-development of software, and in this way it can be really very useful for both, for the research infrastructures and also for industry. The challenges concerning accessing to arise, well, it was said already. We can just repeat that the question is the different working cultures and different timelines and different languages between research infrastructures and industrial users. We also have the point of intellectual property, which should be also solved on a broader level. And another question is about paying back of the research results which the industrial users can receive after using the research infrastructures. We understand that intellectual property rights is very important for them, but at a certain point we should also find a mechanism how they should give back to the society what they received from the use of the publicly funded research infrastructures. And another point is the diverse funding sources, which are absolutely necessary for research infrastructures. When research infrastructures have some public missions, like, for example, environmental monitoring or some other public missions which go beyond access to research infrastructures, then some funding should be also found for this mission of research infrastructure. And concerning benefits, well, first of all, it was said that there are already different examples of good existing collaboration between research infrastructures and industrial users. And we should be able to better communicate about them and better make them known to our decision makers, funders, and the whole communities. It is also important to say that for research infrastructures, it's very useful to have collaboration with industrial users, in the sense that they should be considered as not as enemies, or not as something isolated in the society, which just gets public money and does something which nobody knows what. But research infrastructure should be understood as a partner in the whole system, and the society should also understand what are the benefits of research infrastructures for the society. Collaboration with the industrial users are necessary because these users can also identify the necessary cutting-edge technologies, and thanks to this identification, research infrastructures can develop and suggest new services, and also better develop the existing tools at research infrastructures. And besides, we have also examples where the industrial partners can give access to the industrial tools for the researchers, which is very beneficial for them, and which is very enriching the researchers. It can be to a limited number of tools, but still it is very useful, and it is important to keep it in mind as well. That's all. Oh.
Colleagues, as usual, I am starting always with an apology. My apology is I have not prepared any slides. There might be several explanations for that. One of them is that we have had such a rich discussion that we ran terribly over time, and I simply had no time to do that. And the other thing is, being the last, I saw it might be not very clever to repeat what was said by the others, and therefore I am coming here with my notes with the help of the other colleagues, and will try to complement what was already said. We have had really a very, very rich discussion, resulting maybe also from the very broad variety of the audience, of the participants in the discussion. And we started from very basic. So when speaking about challenges, we have also brought cases where these challenges were demonstrated, and we have also identified possible ways forward, not to say solutions. So I will really, in a very sketchy form, go through my notes. And a very fundamental thing that we discovered and we started with is that one of the biggest challenges is that research infrastructures are not designed for valorization or marketing of knowledge. And I mean, if you think about this statement in a little bit more philosophical manner, many of the things that were demonstrated in a more intelligent way by the other colleagues immediately follow from this statement. We also saw that as a possible positive message, we could say that co-development is the most natural and probably also very effective scheme of problem solving and bringing the benefits of collaboration between research infrastructures and the industries to the foreground. We have also touched about funding, but not as a general complaint that more funding is better for everybody, but saying that there is an obvious lack of venture capital and very little systemic support to small and medium-sized enterprises, and this may hamper their engagement into research infrastructure, business and services provided by research infrastructures. Again, a very fundamental statement that came out from our discussion is that there are not only cultural differences resulting from the different environments where research infrastructures and industries live, but there are also certain barriers, language barriers that prevent understanding, and this lack of understanding, the TLR gaps, and all these other ingredients of the different environments shall be and must be and can be overcome by not only trust, as has been said by others, but in a longer-term strategic partnership. And we really discussed a little bit that this strategic partnership, this collaborative approach, problem-solving orientation can help to overcome many of the issues we are characterizing here as challenges. We spent some discussion on the role of social sciences and humanities and research infrastructures in the domain, not only saying that it might be very difficult to find direct links to industry, but we have also identified that in certain domains, the results of research infrastructures and their services cannot or shall not be expressed simply in monetary means, and that industry is not necessarily the only end user of that. So this comes very close to that what was said earlier by the colleagues, that research infrastructures have a social responsibility and social role. We also noted, and this probably shall be somehow followed up later on as well, that distributed infrastructures may have really severe capacity problems when it comes to collaboration with industry, because the individual nodes may have really capacity problems to create proper tools, proper staffing, proper knowledge, liaisons officers being one of the examples. There were some thoughts that we have developed on setting technology transfer offices and industry boards. We have been discussing how further support the engagement and the longer-term sustainability of the research infrastructure industry collaboration. We have addressed also those things that came in the previous presentations here, that mobility is not only the best way for knowledge transfer and knowledge valorization, but that it needs a kind of cycling, and it would be good that if that mobility would not be a single road that goes in one way. And we finalized the discussion on the first question still by saying that there might be many legal challenges resulting from research infrastructures acting mainly in the public space and having, let's say, legal restrictions for commercializing results and knowledge that was funded publicly. We came to the second question. Most of the things I resonate very much with that what was said by Elena and by Jose Luis. What we added here, and which I haven't seen in the previous slides, is that research infrastructures providing services, being it to scientists or industry or all the other users, may also act as matchmakers and remain outside of all the contracts. So they would just connect those who are actually performing the research and are, let's say, benefiting from the research results, and would provide their capacities, services, but not being contractually interested. And the value that is created is a kind of public service and is not necessarily expressed in terms of revenues. So research infrastructures, in our discussion to cut this part short, are seen as a public value with a public mission, and this can demonstrate in very many ways, not only in those that are expressed by money, but one could speak about the role of research infrastructures in education, in training, in formation of public opinions. And there it was very important to note that research infrastructures are in a way very much bound not only to scientific results, but are producing a lot of socio-economic and societal impact, and it is necessary to evaluate those impacts in a proper way. One interesting remark came again to the end of this discussion, and this is that sometimes a big challenge for collaboration between the research infrastructures and the industries is the small market for the generated value. And we spent some discussion on that, how this market can be enlarged and the impact of research infrastructures can be improved by, for example, political demand or other means. We had not much time, obviously, to speak about the benefits. So starting from the public value and mission of the research infrastructures, we just said that research infrastructures can have a voice of neutrality and can contribute in a trusted way to the public discussions or even to the science policy debate. Research infrastructures have a strong role in re-establishing trust in science in Europe but elsewhere, and mobilizing interest in science. And we concluded this again with a statement that it is necessary that we change a little bit the attitude and that technology-based access rules and processes must be developed. Thank you.
I'll be very, very quick. Thank you. I also don't have any slides, but hopefully that shouldn't be an issue. So very quickly, what we've done is we're going to mention, so in question 1, we came up with 4 challenges, and then we have potential solutions to each of those 4 challenges. So question 1, the challenge number 1, the need of human resources to attract industry, or the lack of human resource to attract industry. Challenge 2, the lack of a landscape for collaboration and the need to create trust and reputation, trust between RIs and industry, i.e. a need to increase awareness to both the public and to industry. Challenge number 3 is that industry is not willing to take risks. And challenge number 4 is that there is a lack of a mapping of RIs and TIs and the services that they provide. So challenge number 1, the need for human resources to attract industry. We talked about this, about perhaps the opportunity for somebody from the research infrastructures to be transitioned into industry to work through the problem or engage closer with the partner, particularly at a very, very early stage level. Indeed, it could be later stage as well, but ideally at an earlier stage level, almost somebody to be parachuted in from the research infrastructure with that point expertise. It should be foreseen in the operational model of research infrastructures that at least one position is available as we use the term business developer, which is quite different to technology developer, but the important point here is that these personnel, that they have the point expertise within the research infrastructure and its offering and its product offering. So it knows, the individual knows what they're talking about, so they can engage with industry to build that trust. The challenge number 2, which was a lack of a landscape for collaboration. We talked about we should consider trying to provide industry with almost like a catalogue of services. Need to let industry understand what RIs have to offer. Working on cataloguing of services. Now, that does exist, and I understand that from an individual research infrastructure perspective, it may be easy to do, but to do that over a whole landscape is quite a challenge. Added to that, I think, is that it all points towards building a trust that RIs, for industry, that RIs have excellence in science and that they're enablers and that they have a service to provide. The mindset with a lot of RIs is that it's very academic in its nature. It's public service, it's a public fund, perhaps to have more of a business mindset and to try and imitate perhaps, for example, the big science forum that goes on at the moment, for example, in other domains or other areas, almost have missions to bring all research infrastructures and industry together. Challenge number 3, where industry is not willing to assume risks. This could potentially be combined with incentives, ensuring that they don't have to necessarily purchase instrumentation, but they're rather provided for in advance. There's 4 possible approaches, or 3 possible approaches here. The sharing of infrastructures, the purchase of them, discussing challenges with industry at a very, very early stage, which you mentioned a moment ago, and also that research infrastructures, they come up with solutions to their own problems, even the ones they don't know they have. So it's important, instead of going to industry and saying, oh, we know how to fix things for you, that research infrastructures need to engage with industry much, much earlier, if that is at all possible, at a real foundational level, so that the trust and a rapport can be built. And challenge number 4 is the need for a mapping of ORIs, of TIs, and of their services. So I'm just going to read what I have here, excuse me. So innovation doesn't work in restricted settings. From a certain viewpoint, access schemes need to get rid of boundaries and accommodate different projects together. There should be a loose structure. For example, the EIC catalogue is an example, but we need to diminish the bureaucracy. So remove the bureaucracy, but with the view to the EIC cataloguing system. Probably we need to change the paradigm that we had, where we almost punished ORIs on the roadmap for being too close, for being close to industry. So perhaps just have a more of a loose structure, more flexibility for ORIs to be able to adapt. On question 3, we didn't have much time, but one thing that did come up, which we'll say, is that this is regards to other programming, is bring back the transnational access mechanisms, which we used to have in previous framework programs, and that has perhaps fallen by the wayside over the last 10 years or so. There is evidence out there that a significant proportion, up to 90% of transnational access programs, has led to further development with industry and other partners. So that transnational access should be seen as perhaps a seedbed for further collaboration and not just a means to an end. I think that's all we had. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So thank you really for all the discussion. It was really very lively, and I think we can take note for future work in ESFRI. So thank you very much. Now, the next step, we have the dinner upstairs, but before to that, will be no dinner if there are no photo. So we will have a photo on the way up to the second floor. So please, we can go there, and it's a compulsory step before the dinner. So thank you very much for all the discussion, and we resume tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock on the same place.